The last place a lifer will want to find himself is in the lower ring. Here's a look at the four horsemen, the Cosmic Legion Slygor, the Tusk Gravekeeper. Although much of the prisoner's sentence at Valkatar spent steering clear of the throngs of Splexian prison guards patrolling every corner, it is though the guards of Block 5 that need to be avoided at all costs. These Tusk Block 5 attendants, commonly referred to as Gravekeepers, are tasked with watching over and disciplining the inmates unlucky enough to find themselves in the dreaded lower ring of Valkatar prison. They are led by the brutal commander, Slygor. Stern and unyielding, Slygor is not to be crossed. A former champion of the prison's fighting pit, the Ithokrian thug takes a no-mercy approach with his inmates. As a survivor of the ring himself, Slygor believes that the only approach of any worth when dealing with the weaker and less successful combatants is one of harsh discipline and zero tolerance for failure. If Valkatar was a place of mercy, then the mercy's name would be Slygor. Just before we get a closer look, though, at the Slygor from the Cosmic Legion's line, I'd like to thank the folks over at Four Horsemen that were kind enough to provide this sample we could have a look at. The figure is part of the modular line. In other words, you can mix and match the parts with other Cosmic Legion figures. We're going to start things, though, first with Slygor, and we're going to start things first with a tape measure. The tape measure is going to tell us that based on the configuration he is right now, Slygor is going to stand at 6.5 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 16.5 centimeters tall. Now, I am fairly new to the Cosmic Legion's line, but I'm not new to the work that the Four Horsemen have been doing over the years. We're going to slide over, though, Riz, and we're going to bring in one that they have worked on in the past, that being the Master Universe Classics, Skeletor. Funny, though, that they are from different lines, funny that they're from different universes, and yet, though, Slygor is about the same size as Snake Mountain's Master, Skeletor. Over the sprawling amount of accessories that come packed along with Slygor, there's a fair bit of territory to cover. Again, the sell of this line is that it's modular, so you can change not only the parts that come included with actually the figure of Slygor, but if you have been collecting as well the also Cosmic Legion figures, you can also mix and match the parts that come included with those figures as well. We're going to start things, though, first with, I suppose, the simplest of things, that being his hands. As he has right now, he does have gripping hands. That's not 100% true. He has a gripping hand on one side, he has a trigger finger hand on the other, but he does also come included with closed fists. With all the things that he comes abundance-wise with accessories, I don't think I've ever seen myself ever displaying the figure, though, with closed fists. The fists, though, for what they are, nicely painted. They've done a nice job, in fact, of using this metallic blue finish. That will be a common trend, of course, when we look at the figure. The other thing that he also comes included with is a grabbing hand, a slightly more closed gripped hand, and he also comes with a slight couple of variations also of trigger firing hands. It is, though, to note that if you look at the hands themselves, one actually has a pivot point of the hinge going this way back and forth, while the opposite one actually has it hinging forward and back. So there's a couple of different ways that you can have those fists changed out. The hands themselves are going to hold, of course, the multitude of accessories that the figure comes with. First of all, he gets himself a rifle. The rifle appears to be cast all in dark, kind of a gunmetal gray. There's some nice additional accents they've added there as well in a lighter gray. And on the side, you can notice there as well that there's a little hole. Now, with all the things that he has, all the different ways that you can change and mix and match the parts, like, for example, like he has a couple of hoses. The hose, what you could do is you can attach the hose onto the side. Now, again, this hose isn't just going to be simply used, though, for the rifle. Oh, no. What you can also do, too, with the hose, so if you, say, for example, wanted to have this in his hand, let's just put this in his hand right now. Take the handle. Obviously, we all know how this fits into the figure's hands. I'm going to slide that in place like that. And then what you could do is that you can take the hose, and he has a hole basically right there. So right away, you can attach it there. You could also, too, if you flip around the back of the figure, he has connecting holes on the back of his belt. He also has it on the back of his torso, too. So again, you can take those parts and you can just attach them anywhere that you want. So you can plug it in on the back, for example, right there. You can, again, as we're changing out the parts, you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean. So there's already that as an option. What you can do also, too, is if we put the figure down here for a second, the figure comes also included with these little clear posts. Hopefully you guys can see. I know they're somewhat transparent. These also, though, plug into that same hole. And then you can also take that and you can plug it onto his arm, Not that that's a place where you're probably going to be keeping an extra firearm, but the idea again in mind is that you can also flip around the figure. Remember those holes we looked at earlier? You can plug it onto the back of his belt. You can plug it also as well on the back of his torso. Closer in quarters though, if you want to plug it onto the back, but the means are still available there as well. He also comes included, let's just take this off and put it off to the side here. He comes also included with a staff that serves as well as a cattle prod. The staff on its own is molded here, I'm guessing, in dark black plastic. Then they've painted the bands all individually here in dark gunmetal gray. Some nice additional blue there as well. And then on the end, you can see that it's not doing much of anything right now until we add these parts. Now, there's two configurations for the cattle prod. If you want to look to shock somebody, well, you're probably going to be using this piece right here, but they seem to be somewhat identical other than the fact that, as you can see probably in this one, if I run it, especially my hand, oh, that's a lot easier to see. You can see there's sort of electricity running in between the two prongs. And then they stick out the end here. Psst, don't want to get too close. Going to shock myself. You can see that there's a little stream of electricity on the top. Now, again, if you want to use this one, this would just basically plug onto the end of the staff like that, and you would be carrying around that with him. There doesn't seem to be any connecting hole here. So if you wanted to plug it onto the back of his body, for example, there doesn't seem to be a means. And again, if you wanted to, you just take that off. You then swap it out with the one that he wants to use if he wants to be shocking the prisoners. Just don't get too close. Don't get too close, whatever you do. And that looks really nice. Still, though, I wish that they had included like a clip, for example, that could have accommodated this. Of all the things that he has, and he has a lot of things, there doesn't seem to be, though, a clip to accommodate attaching this onto the back of his body. Move that off to the side. The figure also comes included with a shield. Kind of looking at the lay of the land and seeing what exactly I should be looking at next. Comes included with a fairly simple looking shield. Simple, I don't mean to really diminish this. It's a really nicely painted shield. You can see even they've painted the trim, painted the little individual rivets, and this would attach onto his place on his body in several different ways. You get these extra pieces here, and I want to make sure I've got all the extra pieces here with me. You get these little ring pieces. And they look to be very similar in size, similar in shape, and similar in color. It's not, though, until you look at the back of them. One has, though, a notably smaller peg than this one here. If you wanted to, so again, like this, basically, you just take the back of the shield, and you're going to fit this through from the back. Slide that in place like that. And then he comes with a handle. So the handle attaches onto using the smaller peg. Just plugs in, and you just kind of have to twist it back and forth a little bit. And now you can actually use it as a hand shield. While we're still using, though, this configuration, he comes with a couple of effect pieces. So he has what I would imagine to be kind of a force field effect. And the way they've attached it, if you look at the back of it, kind of looks like a keyhole. See, there's a circle. There's a little lip. The lip and the hole are very important when it comes to attaching it. You have to attach it one way, and that plugs onto the front of the shield this way. You could also take this off, and he comes with a much more elaborate shield. So the whole idea, again, of component pieces, mixing and matching the parts to get the desired look that you want. If you wanted to, you could have the Gravekeepers, like if you had multiples of these, for example, kind of strip down the armor that we will do more in a moment. And then if you wanted to have like the Gravekeepers sort of giving more of a generic shield, you could do that. And then if you wanted to have then Slygor displayed with a more elaborate shield, this again plugs in place. And I think this is the Tusk logo there featured on the front. And just a nice way to kind of customize exactly the way that you want to have the Gravekeepers displayed on your shelf. While we're actually, you know what, while we've got that in place, actually, no, we have to take this off first. So we're going to remove this. This is just going to pop back through, simple as that. And then we're going to take the longer peg. So it's a much longer, much bigger, bulkier kind of peg there. And that's going to plug in basically the exact same way. Fits through the back. Go back and use the shield piece that we want to use. That fits in place like that. And now, because that's also using that same universally sized hole as basically all the things we've looked at so far, this can now attach onto his arm. And he has a hole on this side. He has a hole on this side. So you can decide where you want to exactly have that attached. You can attach the shield onto his arm, for example, or you can also flip the figure around to the back. You can plug it onto the back of his belt. I know that's not normally a place where people keep their shields. Or you can also attach it onto the back of these holes too. Although with the quarters, again, they're pretty close. You just barely can get them on there. It's not really working well with the sort of canopy that he has right now. But as we kind of, again, remove the parts, this would then be able to plug onto those back of the holes. See what I already mean when I'm talking about the configuration of this figure. The other thing that he also has as well is he has this black piece too. And if you look at the back, this will also serve as a place to attach the additional multiple armors. This actually plugs onto the back. So there's a slot plastic right there. You already know where this is going. That's going to plug onto the back like this. There we go. And then what you can do is now you've got some additional hoses here that then can, if you want to attach the hose this way, feed it from like the front or feed it from right here. You can also attach it onto the back, so you can do that as well. You can also attach the gun. You know, again, if you want to have the hose from the back of the body to the gun, you can also do that as well. But I think this also serves as well. Yeah. So if you put the figure down here for a second, go back to the configuration that we had before. Again, you can see what I mean here. We're just going to remove this piece here, pop this off, pop that back through. And I probably should have maybe started this when I was using this piece here. So this is the smaller peg, right? That's going to fit onto the back of the figures, or the back of the shield. And then you can take the handle piece, which again kind of looks a little bit like a hose here, attach that onto the back. And again, you can either have them holding it right as a shield, but if you also too, if you look at the back of this slots onto the back in that hole. So there's a hole right in the middle that accommodates the handle. So you can fit the handle in that way too. Lots of stuff going on. So there's that option too as well. He has one other thing before I guess we kind of start tackling the different armor pieces, is that he also has a projection screen, giving us a little, I think this is the actual solar system where Valkatar actually is located. It's nicely done here though in a translucent purple plastic. And this, because again it's using that same universal size peg, just plugs onto on his arm, just like that. So you can have the figure actually looking as if he's looking like at his little screen there on his arm. Very, very cool. As for the actual configurable pieces, though, for him, again, a lot of this is all armor swapping out. You're going to pull out one piece, you're going to replace it with something else. As he is with it right now, the defaulted head sculpt when he comes out of the packaging is that actually of Slygor Riz himself. The head sculpt is fantastic, though. It's been, though, a while since we've looked at 4 Horsemen here on this channel, and, you know, with the time that it's been away from this company, you know, some very large strides have been made when it certainly comes to the paint applications. Love the look of the head sculpt here for Slygor Riz. Now, again, you could choose to use this head for yourself if you wanted to, but he has also 2 other head configurations too. The head, by the way, does have a ball joint, and you know you can mix and match the parts that way. But again, just the striping that they've added to the face, some really very slight gradients of color as they've airbrushed in. Really nice on the head sculpt. Really like the look of this one quite a bit. But if you did want to, though, he does also come with 2 other heads over here. So let's just stick with the head, or stick with the configuration of armor as he is right now. He comes with 2 helmet pieces. Now, again, the whole idea is if you want to make these as sort of just drone soldiers, spin this around so you guys can see. He comes with 2 configurations of helmets. One's a little bit more wider there on the top. One is a little bit more slimmer to the front. Looks a little similar to like a xenomorph. With each of these, by the way, though, you can also take these visor pieces off. And these are just clipped in place, by the way. And there's a little singular eye in the middle. Just a cool effect. It's especially cool the fact that they also did use purple plastic so that you can still see the sight sticking, beaming its way through. Now with this as well, you can also pull these parts off too. And he comes with he comes with these extra larger domes. You have to remove the first thing first, and then there's a little, again, lip of plastic on either side. These just plug on. They're a little harder, though, to plug in place because you're feeling like you're not fitting them in the right place, but you get yourself like a larger visor. And there's also, as well, this version, which is basically, it looks to be very similar other than the fact they're not using the translucent purple plastic. They're using kind of, again, that metallic blue. That just pops off, and then it swaps out with this head sculpt here, too, or this visor piece as well. So there's lots of cool stuff you can do with these heads. Now, to put this head onto the ball joint, it's the same size, the ball joint, so you don't have to change out the parts at all. That plugs in place, and then you can just choose which visor you want to use. So say if you wanted to use this head sculpt or this visor piece, gives you a little bit more of a larger rim to the top. Or again, if you want to beeline it back to the original visor, I just dropped that on the floor. We're just going to grab that piece later. That just plugs in place, and now you got yourself the smaller head sculpt. And that's just based on what we've done so far with this armor. Now, there's that secondary piece of armor over there as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the head piece off. We're also as well going to take off this whole armor piece. So like this whole top piece that has the canopy can be detached from the body that's underneath. All you'll do is just lift this up, and this pops right off. Super, super easy to do. While it's actually off for right now, at least, there's a couple of other things you can do as well. He's got a little turbine piece, and that just clips into right in here. I think it actually clips. The prongs are a little on the smaller side, but I think it actually fits right in there. Although I'm having a little more of a struggle actually getting in there. But there's a little cyclone piece, a little turbine that fits inside that little hole area there. You can also as well, I believe, take the shield pieces. I think you can take the shields. Oh, maybe not. Maybe you can't take the shield pieces for that. So with this configuration, then he does also have some additional shoulder pieces. These shoulder pieces would have been a little harder to do just because the way the armor was already set up. But if you see those holes that we were looking at before, with the way that the shoulders are set up is that there's a peg right there, and then there's the holes right there. Those just plug in place. And we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Plug it in place. And nothing is necessarily committing you to the idea that it has to always look the same way every single time. In fact, if anything, the selling point on this line is the fact that you could get yourself several of these and then just change them to the exact configuration that you want. So again, you want to use that head sculpt, you can use that head sculpt. Hey, if you want to even beeline it back to Slygor Riz, you can also use this head sculpt as well. You can change out the pieces that way. The only other configuration that he has, at least from armor, is that involves actually taking these armor pieces off, is that he also has this setup too. Now this setup, there's a slot on the back, which again, well, there's a little lip of plastic right there that should go then onto the slot on the back of his body. This is a little harder to fit in. You kind of have to fit it down on his shoulders and then slide it down in place before it latches itself onto his torso. Now, already being that it's using and occupying this back area of his torso, there's then no way that you can use the shoulder pieces. And with the way it is right now, you can go back, use the Slygor Riz head sculpt. You can pop that in place. You can also as well, you can take the hoses, for example, and you can take the hoses and you can attach them still to the back of the belt. So that's still accessible right there. But you can also take as well an additional canopy piece, and that just fits over top like that. I just want to make sure it's all the way on there. So you can have Slygor Riz either, though, with the helmet over top of his head, or, which you can also do too, they've given enough at least clearance. So, say, for example, you wanted to use this head sculpt. You can take the, hell, actually, maybe not that one. This is the wider one, so that's going to have a little harder of a time to get the dome over top of it. But you could at least use the slimmer head sculpt, pop that in place, and then this slides over top, just trying to get it over top of it, like, there we go, just over top. So you can still use that alternate head sculpt. The only thing that you can't use is just this one because it's a little too wide. Popping off everything, though, and looking at the rest of the figure's details. I mean, I know we've sort of spent how much into this review just actually talking about the things that are configurable on this. By the way, again, with it being modular, you can actually remove and swap the parts out if you happen to have picked up any of the other Cosmic Legion figures. For the rest of the detail on the figure, there's a lot of good paint going on here. Of course, you've got the metallic blue making up the majority of this, but you've got some really nice additional silver accents, some black underneath there as well. A lot of cool, intricate details added there. And again, with all the parts being mix and matchable, really for you can decide for yourself exactly the way you want to have it configured. He does have these skirts, though, at the tops of his thighs. Now, looking at the images online, I think the skirts were actually placed the opposite way, where the longer length of the skirt was facing forward. I don't think there's a way to remove the skirts and swap them around, but they're fine. I mean, they're attaching actually here for the top of the belt, and it doesn't limit at all the articulation when it comes to the figure. Speaking, though, of the articulation, I guess, should we start with maybe this head sculpt? Should we go back to Slygor's head? Okay, we'll stick with this head for right now. Head's going to be on a ball joint, so already right away, the head moves up, it looks down, and you can also move it back and forth. That doesn't change at all, depending on whether you use this head, you use the wider helmeted head, or you use Slygor's head. It's going to attach and have the exact same freedom to move with that ball joint. As for the shoulders are going to come out. Now, I did notice, though, the way that they've designed the shoulders can't really get further out from, say, for 45 degrees, about a 45-degree angle. In fact, one of the things that also come included with the Cosmic Legions is a little bit of a warning, the fact that once they've come out of the factory line, some of the joints may have gotten a little tighter. So you may want to just be treading cautiously when it comes to getting these figures out of the packaging. If there's resistance at all to the joints, you may want to stop and just kind of heat things up a little bit with just a hairdryer. That's all you really need. Just take a few passes. That might be enough just to kind of soften up the joints. But the arms, though, rotate all the way around. Slygor does have a hinge in the elbow, and the arm also does rotate back and forth. The hands, whatever hands you want to use, do swivel back and forth. They're not going to be able to swivel all the way around just because the way they've designed the gauntlet, it sticks a little further over the arm, so it's going to prevent the hand from a little bit be able to move all the way around. But that's fine. Upper torso is going to be on a ball joint, though. The legs do split out with a full bit of freedom. You can take the legs and move forward. You can move them back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. A single hinge only for the knee, but it does rotate at least the lower leg. The ankle moves up and down. The ankle rocks back and forth as well. And the figure does have still peg holes on the undersides of the feet, even though really none of the Cosmic Legion figures have come included with display stands. You know what, again, this is the first time, honestly, that I've looked at the Cosmic Legions figures. I've seen them online. Various different online sites have listed these before, and I've always wanted to really pull the trigger, but just with all the budget that I always kind of assign for other things I want to look at on this channel, I have never really gotten the chance. Seeing, though, now in hand what they've done with the Cosmic Legions, I can certainly see why this line has such a large following. Not only are the figures detailed and superposable, but the sell of this is obviously the fact that you can mix and match and have modular pieces changed around. Not only changing out the parts and pieces that come included with Slygor Riz, but if you are also collecting Cosmic Legion figures, apparently you can also mix and match the parts with those other figures as well. We started, though, with Slygor Riz. We're going to continue the review, at least with one other figure, and that's going to be coming up in the upcoming review, but I am really liking this line so far, and I can certainly see again why there's such a large fan base behind it. Slygor Riz is not only just a fun figure to look at and a fun figure to pose, but also a fun figure to mix and match the parts with. With all the parts, honestly, that he comes included with, there's no real way to settle on one look. You'll always find yourself, I found myself at least, always wanting to change out the parts and swap it out with something else that he came included with. By the way, though, that little turbine piece I was having a problem with before, eventually I did get that in there, so it's lodged very firmly in place into the front of his torso. I've got then the staff in his one hand, the shield in the other, even though it's not really in his hand, it's actually attached onto his forearm. The benefit, though, of these modular parts and the benefit of the fact that they're using universally sized holes means that you don't have to settle on one idea alone. If you change your mind down the road, you can attach the shield onto his arm rather than in his hand. You can attach the shield onto the back of his body. Though with certain configurations, like the canopy he has right now in the back of his torso, there's no way then you lose, obviously, those extra shoulder pieces because those holes are now concealed, but there's a lot of, again, parts that you can change out to the figure. Now, with Slygor Riz and some, in fact, of the other Cosmic Legion figures, they're available on site right now in various online sites where you normally pick your figures up from, and they're actually on sale. BBTS, in fact, if you guys are interested, Slygor Riz, I think, has been marked down by about 20%. He was, though, selling originally for around $70. He's selling now for around $55, about $56 when it's all said and done. Figure, though, I would certainly recommend if you're kind of on the fence about getting into, because let's just say, I mean, I'm in that situation myself. Do I want to start to branch off and get into collecting anything else? I'm already collecting so many things as it is. Honestly, though, with what I've seen here with the Cosmic Legion Slygor Riz, I could really see myself going down the rabbit hole real fast and collecting more of these. Again, this guy is available online. Some of the sites do have him marked down, so if you guys are kind of interested to test the waters with the Cosmic Legions, I think, honestly, Slygor Riz is a good figure to test those waters with. Big thank you once again to the folks over at 4 Horsemen that provided the sample of the Cosmic Legions Book 2 Gravenight Slygor Riz Gravekeeper that we could have the chance to have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys also been collecting any of the Cosmic Legion figures? And if you have, which ones do you have in your collection right now? If you guys also certainly did enjoy this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and want to stick around for more, we are going to be, by the way, wrapping up things, sad to say, for Slygor, but there's going to be a review again of another Cosmic Legions figure in the pipeline, so that's going to be coming up shortly here on this channel. Making sure you're hitting that subscribe, making sure you're turning on the bell notification, making sure you're coming back. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.